Welcome to the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. I'm Alex Cocoros, and in this series, we're diving into the journeys of professionals who are making an impact in the sports industry. From executives to innovators, each guest will share their story, the lessons they've learned, and the strategies that help them succeed. This isn't just about the business of basketball. It's about life, sports, and the mindset it takes to thrive in a competitive world. Each conversation will provide insights and actionable advice you can use to take your own career to the next level. Whether you're looking to break into the industry or sharpen your skills, this series is here to help you achieve your goals. Let's jump in and learn from the best. Today on the SBC Audio Experience, we're joined by acclaimed filmmaker and storyteller, Gotham Chopra. He's the co-founder of Religion of Sports, the production company he launched with Tom Brady and Michael Strahan, and he's also the mind behind some of the most compelling sports documentaries out there. His work includes Man in the Arena with Serena Williams and Tom Brady, Kobe Bryant's Muse, McGregor Forever, as well as Simone Biles' Rising. He's also stepped outside of sports with projects like Thank You, Good Night, Bon Jovi Story, showing his range as a storyteller. Let's get right into it. Hello, and thank you for tuning into the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. My name is Alex Cocoros, and today I have the pleasure of being joined here with filmmaker and co-founder of Religion of Sports, Gotham Chopra. How are you doing today, Gotham?
I'm good. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for taking the time to do this. First off, I just wanted to congratulate you on your recent Emmy nomination for In the Arena with Serena Williams. That must feel pretty good, huh?
Yeah, it's great affirmation. The things take forever, a lot of work, incredible collection of people. So, what's great about that? I mean, it got a couple nominations. Not just, the big ones are always nice, like you get for best series or whatever, the nomination, but also some of the what they call the crafts.
Mhm.
So like sound design, editing, visual effects, that sort of stuff, because it really recognizes
Yeah.
some painstaking work that some of the team members do. And so that's, I'm super excited and proud of them.
So I know you're always busy and always thinking about what's next, what's the next project. You said you're going to London tomorrow. So, what's next for you in a way for your next project?
Yeah, well, we just announced actually today, and which is what I'm going to London for tomorrow. We're working with this club in Birmingham. Birmingham is the second largest city in the UK, and has this football or soccer club that historically mediocre, and that's being generous maybe, in terms of. And so last year, about a year and a half ago, Tom Brady, who's one of my co-founders in Religion of Sports, along with a friend of his named Tom Wagner, purchased this club pretty much out of disrepair. It was in somewhat disrepair, and so they purchased the club, and with the idea of turning it around. So we've been tracking that story, and not unlike Welcome to Wrexham, which is a show that's out there that Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds are involved in. Ours is similar, just in terms of like a celebrity buying a team and trying. But Tom's very unique in terms
Yeah.
of his who he is, kind of his background, as an athlete and winner, and so bringing his sort of psychology to that, it's been
Yeah.
super fun. It's very like alpha, like he,
Yeah.
and so that we just announced today. It'll come out in a couple months, but it's been fun, and we have a big match actually coming up this weekend that we're all going to.
Well, I'm excited for it. And I feel like that's something that in a way you pride yourself on, just having diversity when, go about these projects. You've done stuff with Simone Biles, obviously Serena Williams, like multiple sports. Is that something that you've always focused on, just trying to, have a
Yeah.
big foundation of it?
Yeah, I mean, I love sports. I love all sports. I definitely, when it comes to like my favorite sports, I'd probably like that I've played or followed. I mean, it's probably the mainstream sports like
Yeah.
basketball. As you know, I'm a big basketball head. Um, Baseball, I'm still a huge baseball fan. I've got the Red Sox. I'm a Boston guy, so I have the Red Sox come on. And football. So, but when it comes to like storytelling, I actually, as much as I love sports, like the thing that drives my interest in storytelling is around greatness. Like, what
Mhm.
does it take to be the best? What is it? What are the component parts of greatness? And so in that sense, I just, the basketball or tennis or whatever, soccer is the backdrop,
Mhm.
but the story is really about the people, the team, the culture that drives success. And I think but yeah, diversity is great in that sense of like finding great characters in those worlds.
So what ultimately, makes an athlete's story compelling enough to pursue a documentary? Because it is a long process and it does take time.
I mean, it's storytelling, right? So what is drives great storytelling? Great characters, complicated characters, characters, especially in our field, which is, unscripted, is a willingness to really be open and honest and authentic. Um, Time. Like I think for us and the type of storytelling historically we have done is you want time. Like
Mhm.
you want to really track something, an injury, a comeback, or some huge challenge. So again, it goes back to storytelling, like tension, conflict,
Mhm.
and we're always just looking for that. Of course, like rich worlds, interesting places and backdrops and stuff like that. But I think ultimately great storytelling relies on great characters, and that's, what you're really always looking for.
And that's a good segue into my next point because I know your father is a very successful author, and how much of his influence factored into you wanted to be a storyteller, and was this something that you wanted to do at a young age?
Yeah, I think, storytelling was something I was always interested in, really from a young age. I grew up in Massachusetts. I was first generation American, which means I was the first person in my family ever born outside of Asia, South Asia.
Mhm.
My parents were immigrants. I think, my dad, Deepak Chopra, is a, pretty, or sort of became over time a prolific author, speaker, writer, thinker, all of that. And that definitely had a huge influence. He, especially in the sphere of, so I would say two things happened. One, I grew up in Massachusetts, and as a child of immigrants, like sports, Bruins, Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics, Patriots, Bruins, Red Sox were like my teams and also my language. It's like how I sort of assimilated and
Yeah.
became American. So on the one hand, I would say that was like a thing that really gave me I had a fascination with it. The second thing was, yeah, my dad. And like as he probably when I was a teenager started to really transition first in his personal life, but then in his professional life to like this
Mhm.
world of spirituality, etc. I started to realize like a lot of the things that he was talking about in quote religious or wisdom traditions existed in sports. Like I was
Yeah.
a Red Sox fan. The Red Sox when I was growing up were cursed, and you used to go on these like pilgrimages and have this crazy faith, in the Red Sox, even though they had never won my entire childhood. They never won in the World Series. In fact, had lost fairly catastrophically. And
Where were
so
you in '86?
I was with my cousins who are big Mets fans, and
Big
like,
Mets fan.
and it was catastrophic. It
Yeah,
was like,
I'm sure.
I was a kid, but it was just like unbelievable for me, to
Mhm.
witness that. Um, so yeah, I think like what I started to see in my dad was like his world like existed in
Mhm.
sports. Like I knew what it was like to sort of become part of something bigger than yourself. As a fan, that's what you do. You sort of buy into like this mythology, and so I really sort of fell in love with that, and that was always the interesting thing. As later in my career, as I sort of started to study film and stuff like
Yeah.
that's how I picked up documentary filmmaking. But at first, it was just like I was fascinated with these worlds.
Yeah, and I think I mean any profession really, but especially with sports, like me, I'm a sports junkie. You really do need to have that love for the game, and um, it just kind of comes on its own and naturally. I'm sure it helped being from Massachusetts. I'm a New York fan, but I know how much you guys love your Big Four teams.
Yeah.
It is pretty special.
Well, so on the one hand, the Red Sox were cursed and tragic. The Patriots were like weirdly shameful, like
Yeah,
to be a Patriots fan when I was growing up.
yeah,
Celtics were great. Celtics, was the big three, the original big three, and they were amazing. And they just had again like this mythology, and the old Boston Garden was like this incredible cathedral, like in the middle of the city.
yeah,
And I was there like for some amazing when Michael Jordan scored 63 points in a double overtime loss. He was a young kid. He was 20. I mean, that was his second year. I just got to see that and be a part of that. And like that really just, those weren't just games. Those were spiritual
Yeah.
experiences for me. After that game that Michael's MJ scored 63 points, Larry Bird's famous for saying that wasn't a basketball player. That was God disguised as a basketball player. And that had like a real effect on me. I think now,
Yeah.
what I do, I'm like, that's what I'm doing. Like that's, capturing the sort of like the bigger story around sports.
Right. And you brought up Tom Brady a little bit, and I know he's one of the co-founders of Religion of Sports, and you're known for building these great relationships with high-level athletes. I mean, what is like the secret process behind, gaining their trust and working with them and building these relationships?
Time, and like you just it's like any relationship. It's,
Mhm.
building a relationship over time, gaining that trust, sharing parts of yourself. Look, it certainly hasn't hurt, or it's been very helpful. My first major project, like with a big time athlete, was with Kobe. And Kobe was iconic and singular and amazing and tough and hard to work with. And I think, that was a successful project. And I think that gave me a lot of credibility, like in that world of working with athletes. And, once I did that, a lot of people, Tom included, were like, well, if you can work with Kobe,
Yeah.
I can trust you. And you've been through it. Anybody who knew him or knew of his reputation knew that. So and then once, you go from Kobe to Tom, now you've got like a body of work. And I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's easier to go to Steph Curry and be like, I have this. You build a little bit of your own reputation. But then again, it goes back to like not only building the relationship with Steph, but with, the people around him and who are the people he trusts, and just working your way into that world and, becoming, I'm not, while I have a background in journalism, and, as a reporter, I'm a filmmaker is a very different thing. You're a storyteller, and in these cases, you're a collaborator,
Mhm.
you're a partner telling those stories. You're not a reporter showing up to do a story on Steph or Tom or whatever. And so I think that, it's just again like building that
Right.
collaborative, finding out like what is a part of themselves that they want to share, and then, doing that together.
Right. And you mentioned how Kobe, he was, hands-on, probably had a lot to say about, the project. And I think in today's era, it's like more player empowerment and them having more say. Is that the same for now with documentaries, players wanting, more access to it?
I think so. I mean, it depends on the athlete, but like a lot of them have their own production companies, or a lot of them, of course, have huge social followings and all of that. So yeah, I think there is, but there's a fine line, because I don't want to be in the business of just creating vanity pieces, just like glorified commercials. I still, storytelling as a medium, and non-scripted, like there's like they're nonfiction, like they're true, and so like I think that and this is again why it takes time, to build those relationships, to gain that trust, to
Mhm.
uh, communicate like, hey, you want this, and we all want this to be successful and reach a big audience. Well, in order to do that, like we have to be real and honest and vulnerable and all those things. And, that discussion takes time, and gaining like that willingness to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
You have to work at it. You have to trust each other. So.
And another character that you obviously worked with was Conor McGregor on the
Yeah.
MMA side. He must have been a character, right?
Yeah, real character. Interesting time when I started. He was like it was a comeback. It was around COVID. That was another layer of complexity. Just in terms of, but look, Connor. I've had the real privilege of working with people. Some of the people we've like Kobe, Steph, Tom, Serena, Simone, who are amazing people who I can genuinely say, like, I have good relationships with them. I am inspired by them. I have deep respect for them. Connor is like a different cat, like, and I wouldn't say, like, I don't, even though I spent a lot of time working with him, can't say that I know him really well, or we're not close. I'm not friends with Connor, but I will say what I have respect for him is like, dude's a gladiator. Like, like in his sport, like personal stuff aside, and there's a lot there, but like that guy's a gladiator. UFC is a sport unlike any other. As Connor sort of, and I wasn't a big fan of UFC before I started working with him, but it's like his sport is like two guys get into a cage, one gets out. Like that's the
Yeah.
sport. It
Yeah.
is gladiator. And it takes a special type of competitor or person to do that. And Connor, in that sense, like unlike anyone I've ever worked
Yeah.
with, it was
Oh, sorry. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry about that. I thought you were.
no, no, no. He was unique in that. I mean, they're all unique, but like he was singular in that way.
So yeah, I mean, obviously you did MMA fighting, gymnastics, Simone Biles. Is there another sport that you haven't tackled yet that it's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, well, this one that we're doing, it's not necessarily athlete focused, but soccer. I mean, soccer is the biggest sport in the world, most popular sport in the world, and I think it's a fascinating world. And so it's fun to be doing that right now.
Mhm.
I'd say I have done a cricket. Cricket's the second most popular sport in the world, just in terms of the numbers, obviously not necessarily in the West, but I think that is a sport that I've been really fascinated by and kind of curious about trying to find the right way in.
Yeah.
So we're always on the hunt. But yeah, I'd say, other than that, like done some small projects in the world of track and swimming. And, track to me is sort of like fighting.
Mhm.
Like when you're the heavyweight champion of the world, you're the baddest person on the planet. Like you just are. Like, and when you're the fastest, I did a small project with Usain Bolt a couple of years ago, but like there's something pretty amazing about that. Like when you're the fastest person on the planet, like that's saying something. And so I think that's a whole nother world that's really interesting.
I studied abroad in Madrid last year, and I got to see the soccer experience up close, and it really is something different.
Incredible. Yeah.
Champions League, Premier League. So,
Yeah.
and then also when you haven't only done sports. Obviously, the Bon Jovi story on Hulu.
Yeah.
I'm a big old music fan. I think we talked about it a little bit when I came into your office, but that must have been a awesome experience and different.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, different in some ways, but similar. First of all, John found me because he had seen something I'd done on Tom Brady. John, like so many people, is a huge sports fan, and so had seen this thing we had done to Tom that really tracked his 20 years on the football field and all his success. And John sort of said, 20 is not bad. Like I've got 40 under my belt. Like Dan's about to turn 40, and we've never really told our story. And so that's kind of how that started. It also turned out, as I got to know John in year 40 or year 39 at the time, um, he was going through something with his voice. There was an injury. He was trying to figure out, could he come back from this injury? Could he get back onto stage? And I was like, well, that's a comeback story. That's what we did with Kobe when he ruptured his Achilles. Like, this is a familiar type of story. And, for John and for a lot of athletes or performers who have injuries, it's not just like the physical comeback, it's the mental, emotional, what does it take to get back? Can you ever get back to that place? What if you can? And how do you navigate all of that? And I think yeah, it was super fun. It's also like it's Bon Jovi. I'd grown up with that music. There were
Yeah.
shows, the music was incredible, and that was super fun.
This is a podcast for, students trying to get into the sports industry and whether they want to be in media, broadcast, production. Can you just talk about how important it is to have, the full production team on the same page and, everybody's doing the right thing and it's a well-oiled machine? Because I know that's important.
Yeah, look, I mean, you are a product of the team. It's one of the lessons I learned as a sports fan, team sports fans. Tom Brady, when my co-founder says, it's the team, the team, the team. Like,
Right. Right.
quarterback gets a lot of the credit, but, you need an offensive line, like to protect you. You need receivers to catch the ball. You need defense to keep you in the game. Like, you don't win Super Bowls on your own, right? And so I think I have realized that too. As a filmmaker, you're as good as your cinematographer, you're as good as your producer, your writer, your editor, your visual effects designer, your composer. That's, and it's the same in, this medium that we're on right now, with your sound engineers and your producers and stuff like that. So yeah, and that's again, it goes back to me. I mean, it's of course skill sets and people are skilled, but it's relationships. Like who are the people that you're working with, collaborating with, problem solving with, because all of these mediums, really are just a series of challenges and
Yeah.
things that go awry. And it's like, okay, well, who's going to help me figure this out? Who's going to help me solve this? And sometimes it's like, it's not just like people with certain skill sets, it's just people you can depend on. And
Right.
so we're those people. In like sports, it's like, your utility players and your slot receivers and your like the people who just like can just jump into whatever role that's needed. So I really appreciate those people.
Yeah, and it definitely takes trust and time. Is that how you feel about when just building like communication skills and talking to people? Because I know we only met once when I came into your office, and I'm no celebrity or Tom Brady, but it was just so easy to talk to you, and you were talking to you like a normal human being, which I am. But I think that goes a long way, whether it's a celebrity or someone regular, college kid.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think it's all about relationships. It's all about, I genuinely also look, I'm really lucky. I love what I do. And so when I meet other people who love what they do or are passionate or curious about finding what they want to do, like we just have an instant chemistry. There's stuff to talk about. And so stuff that feels very relatable. I mean, it's, yeah, even athletes, of course, they're famous and all that fame, but like the best athletes love what they do. Like this is their life's purpose. And so that for me is relatable. Like I love what I do. And by the way, it's really hard. Like, and being an athlete, really hard. Most of the time you fail. Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
most of the times, like you strike out. Like if you're a Hall of Fame baseball player, what do you hit 300? That means 7 out of 10 times, like you're
yeah,
not getting on base,
yeah.
And so like it's problem solving, it's being resilient, it's figuring out how to learn from your mistakes or failures and reimagining yourself.
Right. How do you think documentaries have evolved in the streaming era in terms of
Yeah, I
Netflix?
mean they're always evolving. The industry is always evolving. Consolidate. There's endless consolidation right now. There's ebbs and flows. There's long form, which is kind of what we do, or historically there's short form. For a minute there was something called mid form, which is like the sort of not the feature long or the hour long stuff, but also not the social media. Like, okay, like can you do this in 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, so it's constantly changing. Of course, everything these days is very much algorithmically driven, you know. But at the end of the day, also there's the storytelling. And going back to one of your original questions, storytelling is driven by great characters and, conflict, drama. And it's an art. But it's also kind of a formula. Like, it's the ultimate algorithm is storytelling. And so I think while we team and myself stay conscious of like, okay, what is Netflix looking for? How's Amazon Prime thinking about stuff? We also like try not to get too caught up in like the latest trend. Because if you become a trend chaser, especially the time and money that it takes to put these things together, by the time you figure it out, like the trend has changed, things have moved. And so, we try to like stay ahead of that. Like, what are we passionate about? What's exciting to us, and because I think that is ultimately the ingredient that drives great storytelling.
I also think what's interesting a lot about all your films, a lot of them, cover the mental health aspect side of sports, and in today's world, I think that's, more apparent and people are talking about it more. How important is that to you, talking about the mental health side of of sports and that connection to it?
I mean, look, I think one of the things I've learned just working with great athletes is especially later in their careers, like the Kobe's and the Toms and the Serenas, is like they sort of figure out physically like how to maximize their abilities and they know how to train. they know how to take care of themselves. They know how to, diet and nutrition and all that sort of stuff. I think where what separates them, especially the ones that go on for a long time, is like that mental, emotional approach to the game. Like, how do I navigate? Sometimes like the longer you go, the more successful you become, the greater the pressure, the greater the complications, because now there's fame and there's fortune. And
Mhm.
so like, how do you navigate all of these things? And how, because you need to be able to focus, right? You need to be able to be present in order to perform at the highest level. It's like super competitive
Right,
at the
right.
professional ranks. So the great performers I have seen have this ability to navigate all that, or as they say, block out the noise,
Mhm.
etc. Now, there's also like, well, when that falls apart, like when Simone Biles, like on the most public stage, had that happen to her in Tokyo in 2021. It's a project we worked on with her, and got this thing called the twisties where she just like but it was really like all this childhood trauma
Mhm.
that bubbled up in a high pressure moment,
Right.
COVID and all this other stuff that contributed to it. And she had like a mental break. I mean, she talked very openly about it, later. But so it's like, there's the mental health aspect of it.
Mhm.
And then there's like the mental, it's
Yeah,
almost like taking on a bad stigma, like the mental toughness.
yeah.
Um, but like mental strength, let's call it, like, and that ability. And that's what, Simone's been on both sides of that. Like 2021, the mental, when it all went badly. But she also was like the one who worked on her mental game and, kicked ass in 2024 in Paris, and so she's a special. We worked with her a lot. Um, yeah.
And I think that's important because, like in any documentary or film, you could show the highlights of a game, show the box score, what a player did on the court, on the floor. But when you really go into their mind and show their human side, I think the viewer and the audience can really connect and resonate with that.
I mean, it's every gay athlete, will tell you that story. Tom Brady will tell you, hey, listen, I mean, everybody's seen the combine. Everyone knows the story at this point, the 199th pick and
Hmm.
sixth round guy. And like there were, quote, more talented guys that could run faster and, throw harder, whatever. Like every sport is full of that. Steph Curry was too small and they, drafted Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn before him. What was it special? It was the will, it was the persistence, it was the resilience. Steph, I mean, it's the story of his life. He was too small. He didn't get recruited into big time schools. He went to Davidson, dropped in the draft, came out in the draft. He was injury prone. It's like Monte Ellis is the guy. Like the fans wanted, who is this kid? Why is he here? Trade him. But like he just kept on going, kept on going, that will. And, that was the defining characteristics, that mental toughness, that ability to come back over and over again. Um, I think that's what separates the greats.
And is Tom, I'm sure he's as competitive, in filmmaking in this part of his career than he was on the field, right? You see it up close and personal.
Yeah, he's super competitive. I think he has like a lot more perspective now, having sort of been through it 20 plus years. He also, he went to 10 Super Bowls, he won seven, he lost three, but he'll be the first one to tell you without the three losses, I wouldn't have had the seven wins. Like
Right.
and Tom was the guy. He was like, I don't think he started playing football in high school till 10th grade or something like that. And then Michigan, he was whatever it was, like the fifth string quarterback when he got there. And so, but yeah, he's hyper competitive at everything, and special in that way. But he's a dad now, so he has to
Yeah.
kind of like balance that, like with being a good, dad to his kids and stuff like that. So, but it's fun to be around him. He's just a great guy.
Yeah. And I think it showed in his broadcasting career too, his first year. In the first couple of weeks, social media was kind of ripping into him about it. But then you watch him in the Super Bowl, you could tell the progression and
Yeah.
how he locks in, and then when he focuses on something, he can do it.
Look, and that doesn't, I mean, that guy studies like, so for
Right.
broadcasting, I mean, I was around him, the preparation and the studying he did was what he did in his football career, and that was Tom, yeah, like his will, his mental toughness was also, but like his processing power, like his ability to watch tape and see what's happening and process it as a quarterback, but now as a broadcaster. So it's a progression. Like yeah, like by the Super Bowl, he's so much farther than he was at the beginning of the season. And I think just over time, it's going to get more and more and more.
I think it's important because I can tell even when you were talking about Steph about the certain draft picks, Johnny Flynn and Rubio picked ahead of him. Monte Ellis was the guy. Just knowing all these little tidbits that helps a lot, right? With connecting with these players proves that hey, your
Yeah,
shit.
it definitely helps. I mean, it's their language, it's their lives
Right.
cases. It's also almost like a requirement. I mean, you can't step into a room, and I've only limited worked with LeBron, but like you can't come unprepared. Like that guy is a basketball genius. This was Kobe. Like you
Yeah.
had to like he just chew you up and spit you out. Like if
They'll call you out right away.
yeah. And like it's not unlike because again, I'm a huge basketball fan. So I'd seen like Kobe and Shaq like in their glory days, right? Like we're like competitive and it's fighting, like in practice, like
Yeah.
going at each other. Like there was like that real intense rivalry and respect and all of that sort of stuff. Because there were other stories, right? Again, as a basketball fan, it's like there's this story of Smush Parker who just was intimidated by Kobe. And he would challenge and try to intimidate. And if you let him, he would, and he would crush you. And so Smush Parker was this guy who, Kobe just went at him in practice and just destroyed him. And it was never the same, and like, so I think like that's a really important part. Like, so with LeBron, he's a student of the game. He's historical. So you have to come like
Yeah.
ready to talk about Pistol Pete and Alex English and like all these historical
Yeah.
figures or people that he's played with or whatever. And then you can see he turns
He
on.
knows. He knows. Right.
I
And
got it. Now you're like, you know,
yeah.
you're one of us.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Um, so I guess just it's a overarching question. I'm sure you get it all the time, but just for young kids just trying to get into sports or pursue a career in sports, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, like my advice is take every opportunity you can. I learned early on, like I never said no. Like whatever the opportunity and the opening was, I went in and then I very much tried to prove myself. I was prepared and I came and, I tried to impress and there was no job that was too small, no task that was too small. And I always wanted to be, and even now, like as, the role that I am, like I don't really know I work with some amazing people. I don't know what their titles are. I know they're reliable. I know they're good people. I know they're hard workers. I know that they will help me solve problems. I don't work with people like, oh, well, that's not really my role. That's not my job. It's like, no, no, no. Like you want to work here, you want to be part of this, well, then jump in. And I'm kind of like that. I'll pick up a camera. I'll, sort of do all the things. And I think that's really helped me in my career. So I would say just, be opportunistic. And then I think it's also just like experiment. We all, especially in my medium, but also your medium, like, we all carry cameras in our pockets. We have access to distribution, all these technologies and tools that we have. So you can just do stuff and try stuff and be okay with failure. Failure is okay. Failure is a good thing because it gives you the opportunity to learn. So yeah, that would be my advice is, go for it.
Well, thank you so much, Gotham. I really appreciate you for taking the time. I know you're busy and have a lot of things going on, so I
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled to do it and excited and you gotta let me know when this is ready.
yeah, I would obviously love to stay in touch and
For sure.
on the line.
Oh, and we plan to, for sure.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the SBC Audio Experience. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insight into the world of storytelling through the eyes of Gotham Chopra. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. Tag us on your IG story at Sports Business Classroom to share your favorite takeaways. This episode is brought to you by Hall Pass Media, a full-service marketing agency specializing in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. For more information